say I'm not gonna open a restaurant. We're live. I see what you did.
Go ahead,
I'm not
buddy.
opening a restaurant, but I'm focusing on like exotic firewoods
Hmm,
from the tropics, and I've
nice.
been I've been doing the studies, and dude, like I've already found three which are amazing, and I'm yet to try three more. And one of them is basically the residue of coconut. It's basically you get like the coconut water and the coconut meat, and everything else is just refused. Like nobody uses it for anything. Now in
Hmm.
Indonesia, they turn it into charcoal.
Hmm.
And if there's something we have down here, it's
Hmm.
coconuts. So
Yeah,
why not take after the Indonesians and do some coconut charcoal? So I'm
sure.
looking into that. I'm looking into that. So yeah, it's
Very
exciting.
nice. It
It's right.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
No,
right
definitely.
alongside. And I get out of the house, so I'm not draw. I'm like when I'm not drawing, I have something else to do, so I can get some
Yeah,
sun.
absolutely. That's really key, honestly, for
Yeah.
something that's creatively intensive that you can easily fall into for an entire day and then do it over and over.
Yeah.
That's fine. But
Hmm.
I'm learning that too. You gotta come up for air every now and then. Let's kick this biatch off, buddy.
Let's
What do you
do
think?
it. Let's do
All
it.
right, great. So, welcome everybody to another episode of the Ginge and Pedro Show. I am, of course, Ginge Gingerton.
And
Alongside me, my boy.
yeah, the
Go ahead,
master
buddy.
of fire,
Yeah, Grill Master. That's your
Pedro.
official
And
title.
yeah, there you go. I can take that one.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So they're
mhm.
cool with that. That's you Latin Americans are sort of touchy about titles. You can't anything that sort of gets to I don't know what's a title that wouldn't work down south for you.
Mm, I don't know. I really don't know what you're talking about. Like we have problems with titles. This is the first time I hear that.
I'm riffing, buddy. Help me.
Yeah. Okay.
Help me.
Sorry. I thought you was like no. You got me thinking. Like wait, we have a problem with titles down here.
Well, I'll
Like
say this from my understanding.
oh
Whether
okay.
that is true or not, I don't know. I may
Okay.
have made that up on the spot,
Hmm.
but well,
Yeah.
nonetheless, let's go ahead and just quickly we'll say hello to the chat. I see some new
Yeah. Let's
faces,
do it. Yeah.
yeah, but I see some old faces too.
Mhm.
Got Derelict Books popping in.
So,
Woo, Marty. All right,
ooh, Marty.
let me save Marty's friends here. Speaking of friend, Michael Gotti,
Michael
author of Earth's
Gaddy's
Best
here,
Friends. Hey, buddy, thanks for coming
sir.
by. Pops Van Zant, of course.
We go get the pops.
Okay, don't call him fishmonger. Don't do it. All right,
Yeah.
enough BSing. Let's do this. All
Yeah.
right, buddy. So, um, without further ado, author extraordinaire, Mr. Marty Shannon. Hello.
Actually,
Hey,
you know what? Speaking about Latino titles, Don Martin Shannon. How about that?
there you go.
Yeah.
Very
There you go.
nice. Don
Yeah.
Martin. All
Sure,
right.
I'll take it. Why not?
Yeah. There you go. That
Okay.
means you own an hacienda, sir. That's very classic.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Didn't expect that to come on the show and get gifted Don status along
Yeah,
with a
exactly.
As long as that
hacienda.
doesn't change my tax status, I'm okay.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, if you come down here, there'll be no taxes to speak of. So there's
Yeah.
that.
Panama's sort of loose with that, from what I understand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. They take like 12% of what you do down here. I mean, you see it in the services. The services suck, so you pay for everything, but you don't pay that many taxes down here. So
Nice.
Okay. Well, raise the roof then, buddy. Very nice.
yeah,
No,
exactly.
go ahead. All right. So, Marty, thanks for joining us, man. How are you doing?
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. Happy to do it.
Awesome.
How you
man.
doing? How's the day been treating you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Another 3,000 word day. Got just trucking away on the next novel. There's some open spaces on the shelves behind me, so that's where I gotta write some more books to fill those in. But no, it's just another day here in sunny West Florida.
Very nice, buddy. Yes, another Florida man.
Yeah.
I always love that. There's a lot of comic book guys in Florida. I'm learning. Like, I'm sure there's lots of them everywhere, but there's specifically within my network. There's a lot of Florida comic book creators, so it's fun to bump into a novelist. Hello.
Dude, there's plenty of weird down here, so we might as well enjoy it.
Absolutely. Right. There's actually a comic book. The author, I believe, is Mike Barron. He's done a bunch of stuff for Marvel and DC back in the day. But he did an indie book. I believe it's called Florida Man.
Yep.
It's just like sort of playing on that whole, the covers, just madness.
Just like headlines and.
Yeah, I always felt weird about that, honestly. Like, I always wanted to move away from Florida, but then I moved into the swamps and like where I live now, which is in the woods, and like the nature and the sort of, whatever it is grew on me.
Yeah, you got to just embrace it. You might as well
absolutely.
just lean in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I did when I did my first novel. It was the series was called The Tales of Weird Florida. And I just leaned all the way in. I said, the hell with it. It's
awesome.
They say like write what you know, right? And I've lived here for oh my goodness, over 40 years at that point. So I knew the area and I knew the general weirdness of the area, right? I mean, there's just certain things that if you go out of state for a while and come back, you kind of go, oh yeah, this is pretty unique to be in here, right?
Yeah.
So you lean into it. You might as well. I mean, we're here. It's what we know, so we might as well use it.
So, how close to a swamp are you, Martin?
Well, I'm on the coast, so not as close as I used to be. But I mean, if you look on the socials for me, the banner image is me with my banjo in the in front of a giant cypress tree in.
Nice.
One of the national forests that are real close to here, but I'm on the coast, so not quite as swampy. But I mean, come check in on me in August, and it'll be swampy. So I mean, the swamp shows up when the rainy season hits, so it finds you.
Yeah, so cool. Like I don't know, like I've been to Florida like 4 times throughout my life, and I see a lot of parallels to what I have down here in Panama, which is like rainforest, lakes, huge gators. Like awesome fishing. So I don't know. Like I felt like, oh, this feels like home.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities.
There
really is when you get right down to it. I think the biggest difference is that when we hit our dry season, it gets really dry. And
exactly.
The middle of the state, especially, is it's not very lush. It's very it's a lot of saw palmetto, a lot of real short stuff. It looks like a African Serengeti almost in the middle of the state. It's very barren, not a lot of trees, a lot of dry ground, and then sort of that muck swamp kind of stuff. The burning muck that we get in the end of the dry season. But no, it's like I said, a lot of years here, and it's a fun place because to write about because it has so much. It has a lot of old, but then it has a ton of new. And we really struggle with that juxtaposition, right? You go to places like St. Augustine or, old parts of Tallahassee, old Miami. There's some parts of the state that are really stupid old. And then there are other parts of the state that are, so new, you got to peel the plastic off, right?
Gotcha.
I mean, they're coming fresh out of the box. So when those two bump into each other is where things get interesting. When you have the cities where, they're constant upheaval and turnover and things coming in, and then you have, 10 brand new houses and then one house from the 1800s.
Gotcha.
And they're all kind of wedged together. And that's, for a writer, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You've got that juxtaposition, that struggle, if you will, between new and exciting and old and questionable.
Yeah, exactly.
Fun.
Yeah. Also, like I was wondering if the Spanish heritage, because I mean Spain was in Florida for a little while.
Oh, sure. You see that in St. Augustine at the fort, right?
Yeah.
You see, we have a lot of native Spanish speakers here. There's some of the best. If you're getting what I would call American cuisine. If you're going out, you're looking at the Cuban food and what is it? Like we talked about before, you'll have a lot of Brazilian food, a lot of Cuban food, a lot of South American cuisine. You have a lot of really interesting stuff, a lot of neat flavors. Especially if you go into the different cities, right? You go down to Miami, you spend time in Tampa, you spend time in Orlando. The further south you go in Florida, the more interesting some of those flavors and options are. And then the more northern you go, the closer you get to really southern cuisine, right? You get into that sort of South Alabama, southern fried.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a big, long, skinny state that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it's where I
It
keep all
is.
stuff. So
Right. Got to put it somewhere.
yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely grown on me a lot just living out here, and I'm pretty much I'd say I'm in it for the long haul. Just generally speaking, it's really grown on me to the point even to where, like, for a while there's like the big joke is to like dunk on Florida, and it's like whatever something crazy happens. Like I think we have a law, like the Sunshine Law. I think
Yeah.
that's where it's like
Sunshine Law. Mm-hmm.
yeah, so like the courts are allowed to give way more information, which is one of the reasons you're always hearing the crazy shit from Florida. It's like
Sure.
because of that, but there was a little bit there where it's like, no, I'm my skin's a little thickened to it, but it's like once you start to love something, then it's the butt of a joke. You're like, you don't know her like I do.
Sure. But like I said, sometimes you just lean into it, right? I mean, I when people ask me, I lean into it. I exaggerate the hell out of it. I'll ride my alligator to work in the morning and all that kind of stuff. Lean all the way in. Yeah.
I will give that a try. Actually, I like that. So let's talk. Let's take her back to the beginning here, Marty,
sure,
if we may. Let's talk your creative journey. Maybe sort of from the start. Did you always know you were going to be a writer? Was that a spark you had, or what was that like for you growing up?
It's a kind of interesting. I did a little writing in my younger years. Like everybody does. They dabble in it. I did a lot of gaming and stuff in the early '80s, early '90s, late '80s. But I really didn't get into it until I want to say about 2016, 17. There was and it happens like a lot of those things happen, right? Your life, everything's going great, exactly the way you want it to. And then some random event happens and your loving wife or girlfriend says, you should see a doctor. And you go see the doctor and the doctor says, we need to test this. We're concerned. So you have those multitude of sleepless nights where you're like, oh boy, what could this be? Now, it all turned out to be nothing. But during that time, you think critically about your life and you say, are there things I wanted to do? And one of the big things I wanted to do is I wanted to write a novel. That was my goal, right? Like everybody has that bucket list, right? So I wanted to write a novel, and I tried and failed miserably. And I said, I wouldn't wake up one day and decide I want to go climb a mountain. I find someone to teach me how to climb said mountain, right? Just like I had a guy teach me how to play the banjo, right? You don't just walk up one day and say, I'll just do this. So I hired a book, like a coach sort of, to teach me the nuts and bolts of it. And it went on for a few months. And it was a really great learning experience. It sort of forced me to reevaluate how I was, the process and how I would do this and what story I wanted to tell, and to really understand a lot more of the nitty gritty of how to go from in here to your fingers. So the first book I wrote, I actually brought that out in around early 2019. It was a middle grade horror novel. So middle grade would be kind of like middle school age, right? And again, you write what you know. So I sort of patterned bits and pieces after my life and the things that I grew up around. I set it in Florida, but I set it in a little make-believe town. It was a tiny little seaside kind of town. And it was a lot of fun. I did it. I wrote it. It's about 60,000 words, something like that. So it was a challenge to do. But when it was done, that was when I had gotten the bug, if you will, right? That was that moment where I said, oh, I kind of like this. I want to do this again, right? So I moved from sort of middle grade fiction to more adult fiction, right? And that's when I got into the weird Florida stories. There are, oh goodness, they're like 30 or something, maybe 35 weird Florida publications out there. yeah, did that, and then about not long after the pandemic really got going, I got into yeah, there you go. I got into doing more visceral horror. So what I mean by visceral was the story that put me on the map for me was The Last Sunrise, which is about 4 or 5 up, I think, from the bottom of that list. The Last Sunrise was originally designed as a serial. Now, if you're familiar with the concept of serials, it's short, like chapter length, kind of quick hit material that just keeps coming. Amazon had created this new service at the time. They called it Kindle Vella. The idea was that you were going to produce this short content, and it's a kind of funny story. I write fast. I write a lot of words. I've written over 1 million words during the pandemic. I mean, it's a thing I do. And when I put out that serial, the originally on Amazon on the Kindle Vella platform, it got a little bit of traction, but I don't have a large social presence, so I couldn't quite get things moving. And what was interesting was a young woman from out the western part of the U.S. sent me a message. Alexis, she sent me a message on the social platform and said, are you going to continue this? Because I absolutely love it. And like any artist, all you need is one person. All you need is one person to tell you they really love something. And you put hundreds and hundreds of hours to doing it. So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I did. I wrote the Last Sunrise. It's around 74,000 words, and it's a little like it's a vampire story, but it's a very dark and personal story. These vampires don't glitter. There's no sparkle. There's no love triangle. This is a very
sorry.
This is a very dark and a violent story, and it's a lot of self-recrimination. It's a first-person narrative that's really tight, close behind the eyes, and because of the way it was written, every 1,500, 1,600 words, it tries to pull you forward to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. You think about this young woman's journey; it's a lot like the Odyssey, right? Where Ulysses is trying to get home. He's on this boat and he keeps running into these different problems, and things progressively get worse. And one island to the next, it becomes it. And that's sort of how The Last Sunrise was structured. In that, imagine you're a vampire and you're trying to survive in sunny Florida, in the middle of the state, where there's no shade, there's no reprieve, there's no break. And I made sure that the people that she comes across know about vampires. They understand them, and they are more than happy to try to mess them up rather considerably. So it becomes a very challenging story. And then our heroine, you go back and forth as you read it, from both wanting her to succeed and also feeling abjectly terrible when she does. She's not a great person. It's a deeply thought-provoking narrative. And The Last Sunrise in book form has been fine, but the real traction was on the Kindle Vella platform, where it was the number 2 or 3 horror story on Vella multiple times, like 4 or 5 times it was featured on the platform at one time or another, during the term of its release. So it was really exciting for me. It's what got me in the Horror Writers Association, which that's where we met. So yeah, it was a big deal for me, and it was really exciting. It was a fun story to tell. And then from there, pretty much everything I've done over the last I want to say 6 months or so has all been different types of horror narratives. I'm not an outline kind of guy, so I use a different process than most, and that lets me sort of flow with the story, but also at the same time end up with an actual story when I'm done.
Right. Wow, very nice. I really like the premise of The Last Sunrise, especially coming from the point of view and being challenging in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
That's just definitely makes it for an interesting read. Very nice. Have you ever considered a graphic novel version of anything?
If I had the resources, we'll say, the resources and the funding to do such a thing, then sure. It's I would love to see. It's like any artist, right? You'd love to see your own work in whether it be in art, in a graphic novel or an animation, or actual actors, or even audio. I've written a couple of episodes now for a horror podcast called Mortis Maledictum, and
cool.
it is absolutely a thrill to listen to those voice actors and actresses tell the stories that you've written. The Mortis Maledictum is there's an ongoing thread, but the episodes that I write are kind of one-off cosmic horror, sort of evil gets worse evil to get it, right? In other words, like evil gets justice from worse evil. I mean, best to put it.
Right.
And they're a lot of fun to write. They're short. I can do one in like 45 minutes. Definitely a lot of fun. I've enjoyed writing for them, Devin and the guys at Mortis, and they're on all of the podcasts and the things. I'll get you the link later, but they're on all the streamies, all that good stuff.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Those are, to answer your question, yeah, of course I'd love to see something done in art. I mean, I do some of my covers. I have some of them done by a young woman up in Canada, and it's always exciting to see what someone else comes up with, right? I'm a big proponent when I work with the artist up in Canada, Faye. I don't tell Faye what I want. I say, here's the blurb, here's the vibe. Go for it. I don't. Whatever you come up with is gonna be great. It's gonna be great. I'm not worried about it. I as long as we hit the vibe, fine. Because you'll come up with something. I've done a handful of little bits of cover work for people, and nothing drives me crazy like someone who's like sort of art directing all the little nitnoidy nuggets and stuff. And it's like, dude, I would love to do that, but you're talking to a guy that doesn't have that level of artistic talent. How about we dial it into something I can do? So when I work with other artists, I feel the same way. It's like, no, I'm not going to give you like a 10-point list of things it has to have. Her arm must be leaning and her eyes must be green, but not totally green, like green with a hint of no, Jesus. It's going to be whatever you come up with is great. I need this vibe. I need this. It needs to feel like this, not whether that's a person cover, an artifact, and a sort of an arts kind of design. I don't care. Yeah, you're the artist. Artists make magic. The less I tell you, the better off you'll be.
You are speaking my gospel, sir. Jesus.
I was putting that out there for future clientele, right?
Yeah. The thing is, like, sometimes you get clients that, dude, God rest their souls, but they don't even know how to communicate. Like, I want the eyes to be nearly right, not hazelnut. Like, what is that?
Yes, yeah, and it's hard too, because a lot of these, anytime you see it in you as the author, you see it a certain way in your head.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
And the hard part is, of course, being the author and not being the artist. You're often like, it's not magic. Why aren't you seeing what's in my head?
Yeah, it's my vision. And the things like I try to match the enthusiasm. It's all enthusiasm. It's not like with malice, but it can get corrosive. Because after a while, they can't communicate what they have in their head. And one's over here just like sitting on I don't know, it feels like you're sitting on a melting Three Musketeers bar. Like, the longer it goes, the worse it's going to be.
Sure.
And yeah, it's horrible. And I have lots of clients like that. I have to be completely honest. It's just that, dude, I'm not the guy for you. You have to basically give up.
So public service announcement for all of your future clients. The best way to work is to just say, artist, do art. This is the vibe I want. If when you read a book of mine, I don't know how you're going to visualize the person. I give you a certain amount of detail. The rest of it is up to you. So your version of Mallory, Mal, from The Last Sunrise may be completely different from mine. And that's okay. It's never going to match up exactly the way I see it. Your goal as an artist is to produce the best version that you can. So the last thing I want to do is tell you, no, change everything you do to try to come up with what I'm seeing in my head. No.
Yeah.
Do what you do well, and I'm sure I'll love it.
Absolutely.
So there's
and
your
that's
service announcement for future clients. Let artists do art.
it makes perfect sense, really. And just from the comic side, the comic writer side, I'm not a comic artist, but I do, I dabble myself from time to time. And yeah, what you're saying, it's having the experience within both disciplines, let's say, at least it sort of opens your mind up to the idea of being able to understand, okay, the artist has the job to visualize it, the writer writes it. And for me, that helps let go of a lot of, what might have been, something emotional. It's like, it's all right. Just let the artist do the artist,
Right. Yeah.
All right.
That's what we try to do.
Let's chat. Excuse me, my voice jumped a couple hours there. Let's
Becoming
chat
a
about
man. Yeah.
Finally. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Wonderful. Yeah. So Marty, I've got a list of what we call a link tree as young folk. Help us pick a book, buddy. Where is the Wheel of Fortune going to take us?
If you want a short but a probably one of the most favorite of books of mine would be the one dead center, The Pearl. The Pearl is a novella length story, so it's not super long. The Pearl is a cosmic horror story, and when I say cosmic horror, for those listening who are not familiar, cosmic horror is a horror story where the fears are more the fear of the unknown, the fear of making some terrible mistake, right? Of being of a decision gone wrong, of a world beyond the one that you understand, etc. So the Pearl, as a story, is a sort of cosmic horror tale mixed with politics, mixed with end of days sort of narrative. The idea behind it is that our hero, our heroine, is assisting or working with a political candidate, and the political candidate has an agenda, has things that they're trying to accomplish. But as the story unfolds, and it unfolds in sort of segments, you'll go forward and backward in time as each chapter, and it starts to show how here's what's happened, here's all the terrible things that happened, and then here's how we got to that. It's a dark story, and I think what it really does is it tries to talk about, one, the ends justify the means, and do they, right? Do the ends justify the means? But two, it uses a little bit of almost biblical allegory. The idea that so you have the original tale of the pearl of great worth, right? You find the pearl of great worth, you bury it in some field, you sell all you have to possess it, right? And the idea behind the pearl was that this great worth, this thing of great value, maybe we don't want to sell all we have to possess it. Maybe we don't want to give up who we are to own this thing, to be this thing. So it's a narrative. What's interesting to me is that I wrote the Pearl in it's about 20 or about 30,000 words. I wrote it in roughly 15 days, and it just exploded. And it was there. And like I said, I wrote it in back and forth flashes in time, where the head of each chapter tells you when and where, so this is where we are, and you can follow it as you go through it. And what was really interesting is some of the people who have read it, people I've never met, have actually reached out to me. I had one woman reach out to me, and she said, I put this book down, I finished it, and it's been 3 weeks and I'm still thinking about it.
Oh.
I can't stop thinking about the way this ended. So of the stories that I've written, that would arguably be the one that's had the most, made the most people sort of stop and tilt their head and sort of, I like books like that. I like when you get to the end of something and you're forced to kind of stop and think for a minute. And I think a lot of good cosmic horror is told that way, where you feel that sort of despair, but also that this is, we didn't mean for this. This was, wait a minute, hang on, what happened? No, I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed writing it. I enjoyed putting it out there. And I've had a couple of people talk about maybe turning it into an audio drama. So we'll see what happens. But I would say it's the easiest way to get into my writing style with the smallest potential investment. And, you know, I mean, the book itself is not very thick. So, and go ahead.
Sorry. No, I wanted to say, I have a comment about AI because as you're talking, a little bit of sort of AI comes to mind. But quickly, I do want to just say hello to the chat real quick. Marty, we got a couple of your pals. We mentioned Derelict, but Chaos SN says, "Woo, Marty." But then they also say, "Oh man, definitely going to have to pick up." Definitely going to have to pick up the cosmic horror stuff. So
excellent.
All right, and hello to Red Dress Press, Chris.
Sure. How's up, Chris?
Yeah, man, I was eating chocolate buttholes all weekend, buddy. Thinking of you.
Yeah, that's an inside joke.
I already told Marty we were getting stupid on this show today, buddy.
At least I hope they were real buttholes. But
no, they were not. You know,
I have faith in you.
You can get your, and now I haven't, but you can get your butthole molded. They make a kit to where you just mold your butthole or anybody's butthole that you can get to agree to do
for a friend.
For a willing participant. But then the whole kit provides you the mold and then the chocolate, and you then make molds. You don't have, okay. You guys get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Gourmet buttholes. Anybody?
Dude, this was
that'll be in the next book. I don't know.
This was such an elevated show, and it just went right into the gutter.
That's what I do, baby.
Everything.
We got Derelict Books. I'm intrigued too. Just picked up the Pearl. Hey.
At least the chat's respectable.
Very nice.
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Derelict.
So
I
much,
hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Now, going back to what you mentioned when you talked about AI, I'll fill you in on a little bit of background knowledge for your readers or for your viewers. Last 2 months, I wrote you're familiar with H.P. Lovecraft, right? H.P. Lovecraft will table all of his idiosyncrasies and social commentary and just talk purely about the mythology and the stories, right?
Absolutely.
The Call of Cthulhu was one of his short stories, and it's very short, and it's actually like just 3 chapters, okay? So I've read it many times, and I loved the concept, but I couldn't get with the language, right? His prose is very different than modern prose, so it's difficult for somebody who writes modern to really get into. So one of the things I did over the last couple of months, and it'll come out a little later on this summer, is I took the original Call of Cthulhu story and rewrote it. I wrote it as 3 novellas because it was far too short as just 3 little chapters. 3 novellas, and I embraced the cosmic horror, if you will, aspect of AI, and of whether it be art generating AI or text generating AI. And so I tried to marry the things you see in classic cosmic horror, the cults and the occult and the sort of end of days and the mystic pieces to it. But I also wired directly in the AI and the idea that we know from a mathematical standpoint, we understand how it comes up with the answers that it comes up with. But at the same time, we also don't know exactly what path the ball is going to drop through, right? How that ball bearing is going to come out. So while we both know what an AI system is going to produce, we also don't. And I think what's really interesting, and what I tried to capture in this book when it comes out, is that what if the AI becomes really good at picking out the part of us that we don't know is there? You know, what if, because it studies all of our art and it studies all of our writing and it studies all the things we do, what if it's able to find that common thread of whether something terrible, something violent, something evil, something that we are really good at hiding, and that we've hidden as a you know, as a culture, as a person, as a species for, you know, hundreds of thousands, millions of years? What if the AI is really good at finding that and bringing that back out? So, in other words, maybe you don't need monsters from outer space.
No.
Maybe the monsters are right in here.
Mm-hmm.
We're really good at hiding them, but the AI is really good at showing them to us.
Yeah. Like I read something very, I don't know, not similar to AI, but there's like this Russian experiments with sound in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I was reading about this short story about a tone that will inhibit empathy. And what would happen to a city if you pulse that tone and empathy is completely like locked out?
Right.
What would happen? Like a mom will not recognize their baby. A guy will say like, "Excuse me," and just run over with the car. Like, it's just there's a lot of elements that yeah, like the human brain could be a monster in itself. So yeah, it's a scary concept. Like I really like it.
Yeah.
So that's where my head's been at as of late, right?
Awesome.
The idea that a lot of these different cosmic horror stories are, you know, they tug at our fears of the unknown, or really our inability to predict the future and to understand, based on the things that are happening now, what is coming.
Yeah.
And, you know, I mean, I'm just one guy. I'm going to guess at what's coming.
Yeah,
right.
Of
I'm going to sit there and guess, but when I guess, it's going to be really terrible.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not supposed to be right. We're supposed to be entertaining. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's a fair point. That's actually something I try to keep in mind when writing too, is just to not glue myself to, you know, like fiction. You know, fact. You know, we're in fiction. We're in the fiction section here, so
right.
You know, have a little fun. So, what are your thoughts on AI? I mean, you must have been doing. Have you played with like any GPT or any of the
sure.
stuff? Or
when I was in college, I mean, this is back you know, early 90s. You know, we were doing stuff with what we called, you know, basic back propagation neural network stuff back in the 90s. You know, my background is all in computer sciences and things. We're doing back propagation neural network kind of stuff, and it was really fascinating what we were able to pattern match and determine even back then. But I mean, that's tic-tac-toe compared to what these guys are doing now. I mean, I think that while the generative stuff is interesting and it does some really amazing stuff, I think that there's a couple of things that people aren't quite ready for. I think no one really understands exponential growth. Exponential growth is hard for people to fathom, right? The chat GPT couldn't pass a bar exam. It failed miserably, and then 2 months later, it nailed it. I mean, that's exponential growth. That's really, really fast.
Right. Really fast, yeah.
You know, and
it's geometric, not mathematical. Yeah. Right.
It's hard for people to wrap their heads around how fast that goes. And I think on top of that, what's a little just or depressing, if you will, is that the last big tech wave to me was the advent of the web, right? The true big, you know, the one I lived through. Okay. You know, where it was no internet, and then, oh my God, we could sell shoes online. We could sell anything, right? And this is early 90s. This was a you know, eye-opening. This was I can now sell, the whole world is my audience. This is amazing. That was a very democratizing technology, right? You know, you can open up a web browser and, you know, building websites, and people were building websites in their garage, and, you know, Amazon starts in somebody's backyard or whatever. I mean, this is a democratizing technology. I look at something like the Chat GPT, generational AIs, stable diffusion, any of those things. To me, they don't feel as democratizing because they're really owned by just a handful of organizations. You're not going to have, Susie Q or Jimmy Joe go whip up an AI in their basement and compete. I mean, it's just not. You need too much data. You need too much processing. You need too much resources.
Yeah.
So it feels a little different than the 90s, where it was everybody's got a website. This feels different, and I think the biggest concern is that, by and large, we trust the machine a lot more than maybe we should.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I
don't know. Like I have this apprehension about AI, and it has to do with my first contact with the concept of AI, which is this like book written in the 1980s called Mockingbird, and it's about a robot that's a prostitute and how he's having feelings about being whored out. It was just like, dude, why would you build a machine like that? It makes no sense. Like, it made no sense when I read it. And I get that book like in 1984. I was like 10. Why was I reading that? Because my dad wanted me to. I mean, English is my second language, and my dad like used to buy me like books in English, like read. But he will buy whatever. You like science fiction? Here you go. So I got like Asimov and Dune, whatever. And I got a lot of weird books.
Sure.
So I got Mockingbird first, and that, like, dude, I was terrified. A 10-year-old kid reading about a prostitute robot. And then I got the Electric Sheep. Do robots have dreams about Electric Sheep? Which is like the birth of
Android's dream of Electric Sheep.
Yeah.
Hey, Dick.
Yeah, it's the birth of cyberpunk and whatnot, and it just gave me this green view of the future. So whenever I hear AI, I go back to that. So maybe, I don't know if my attitude towards it is because I grew up fearing it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
But still, I don't trust it. Like, I'm like, no, this is Skynet. They're coming for us. Screw that.
Yeah. Nope. Well, it's coming whether we like it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
It's here. I mean, it's not going away.
No, not really.
Right. Yeah, I think that is sort of the ultimate thing about it is, it is here, and as long as it continues to grow, quote unquote, we're just gonna die, and that's gonna live on.
Don't worry, I'll write your story.
Yeah.
All right.
You'll be immortalized in fiction.
All right, the Ginge and Pedro show going down in history.
Going down in flames with a chocolate butthole.
All right. Perfect. I would have it no other way, sir.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Anyways. So, Marty, let's take another spin on the wheel here, buddy. What else do we got?
Okay. So breaking out of that and looking at something completely different, the very top is Monsters and Mind Games. So this was another sort of serialized story that was written back in during the pandemic. The idea was to combine some of my more traditional science fiction channel fare. And this just came out. It's like less than a week ago. So it was a show on Sci-Fi when I was a kid growing up called Sliders.
Yes.
Alternate dimensions and all that stuff. And then there was, of course, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original television show. I just pretend the movie didn't exist, right?
Yeah.
And I tried to combine those two things together in a very fast-paced story, right? So I tried to stick the two of them. It's a doorstop. I mean, it's got some beef. But the idea was to create the same kind of fast-paced narrative. It was originally a serial, fast-paced narrative, trying to bring the ages down a little bit. So they're kind of college age. And I went back to the same artist in Canada who does amazing work. Yeah. And I basically just gave her the blurb and told her, knock yourself out. And, she did a beautiful job. I mean, really, really a great work on the cover. It does the whole full wrap thing. So the tentacles wrap from front to back and
very
around.
Nice.
Yeah, she wonderful work.
Indeed,
All
that
done.
character design looks animatable.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely does.
Mhm.
How this girl does not work for one of the studios just boggles my mind.
I can give you a couple of reasons.
What's
why
that?
Not? I can give you a couple of reasons why not. But I mean, I'm an old guard animator, so I know everything that's wrong with that industry. And right now, you don't get in there because you have talent. Let's just keep it at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know nothing about it, but
yeah.
All I can say is that she definitely very, very talented, sweetheart of a girl. And it was
this is awesome.
It's a much more, it's a lot lighter. It's fast paced. See, what I do is, for those of you for the people watching that are writers, I don't plot. I don't sit down and, let's see. So basically, I don't plot. What I basically do is I use something called a framework. And a framework is essentially a process by which you make sure that when you write the story, you end up having a story when you're done, but you end up essentially writing to a set of sort of guideposts, right? So to put it in context, there's a framework I use called the Lester Dent framework. It was put out like in the 1930s. Really simple. It's 4 parts, and each of the 4 parts has a specific thing that has to happen. You know, you have to start with introduce all the characters and the way things are moving, and then you have to end the first part with a twist. In the second part, the hero has to do a certain amount of work, come up just a little short, but have a plan, end with a twist. Third part, enact the plan, fail miserably. It looks like we're all, we're hosed, you're never going to succeed, end with a twist. Fourth part, it's the absolute end of days. Every plan has failed. Pull something from the beginning that we just happen to know or remember or solve, and then see our way out into the finale, to the climax. So this little micro arc, this little Lester Dent model is what I use to write things like Monsters and Mind Games. Every four chapters forms one little mini arc, one little a mini tale. So the actual book itself is cut into 20 little tales. So if you think of each one of those like a TV show episode, right? They're short enough. They're 6,000 words or something. They're short enough that you could read it like a short story, and then it gives you the same pop of like a TV show where it starts a little slow. There's exciting, then it gets more exciting, and a bunch of twists, and oh no, and then it stops, and then the next one picks up where the last one left off. So I tried to write it more like more modern television, right? Where you get the whole book, but it's cut up in such a way that you can read it in small bursts, and it pulls you along through it. I mean, that was the goal, right? I'm not the guy that can get a long epic, and I'm not George R.R. Martin. I'm not going to be able to put out an epic and have people wait years to the conclusion. I got to get to the point and keep going.
All right, you're Martin R.R. Shannon.
There you go.
Hey-oh. Okay. No, I like the idea. I'm a big fan of shorts myself, and there is just something very satisfying about that boom, boom, boom feeling. Yeah, very nice. Okay, love it. Okay, Marty, so we are coming up. We got about 10 minutes or so left here. Is there anything else that we want to talk about? Or you said you have something coming out soon. Monsters and Mind Games just came out.
Yes, that just came out.
Nice.
The next, I try to release a new book every month.
Wow.
Like I said, I've written, I think we're in excess of 2 million words now. So
very prolific.
Thank you.
Awesome.
It's a process, right? I write here at the office in the dark at 4 a.m. every day, 2 hours.
As you do.
What's that?
As you do.
Yes, as one does, right?
Yeah, right.
So no, I write at 4 a.m. I do about 3,000 words a day. 3,000 words takes about 90 minutes. And then from there, it gets synchronized into the systems. And then once the books are finished, it goes out to a proofreader who scoops it up off of Google Drive and does the proofing. And then covers, and then it comes out, and then we're on. I mean, I'm about 6 or 7 books ahead of where the publication schedule is at. But no, the next book will be back into more of a Clive Barker style of urban fantasy, dark urban fantasy.
Very cool.
Familiar with Weave World or Cabal, or I hesitate to say a Magicka because that's an epic, but of Dust and Demons comes out next month, and it's about the same thickness of Monsters and Mind Games. So I use the same sort of rapid part style, but it's a darker urban fantasy, very much more Barker like. Our not so much monsters, but our spirits and gods and goddesses and demons and things are more like something you'd see in American Gods, right?
Gotcha.
Like a Neil Gaiman style. It includes such characters as She of Spun Deceit, the Lady of the Shallows, Queen of Sundered Hopes, Razor Jaw.
That's an awesome name.
Yeah, I mean, that's a part of that process, right? When you sit down to write a story, I don't have a clue what it's going to be about.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. But I make a list of neat things that come to me. Like for Monsters and Mind Games, I had the idea of, instead of E-Vape, E-Vamp. So energy vampires, E-Vamps. I'm like, that's kind of fun. So I wrote that down. And our hero in Monsters and Mind Games uses a metal pole, like a metal pipe. Remember the old lead pipe from Clue?
Yeah.
It's like the lead pipe Clue, but with a whole bunch of electronics in its butt so that it can zap the brains. And it was shiny. So shiny was what ended up on the list, right? And that's nice. That's the process. You end up with this big list of weird stuff. And then as you're writing the story, you're like, oh, yeah, I should use that. Yeah, that's a good idea. You pluck that out and, in it goes.
Like a puzzle, just picking up stuff and making them match together. Awesome.
Yes. It's like making a spice rack. And then, plucking the right spices as you go. And, needs a little more of this. It needs some coconut briquette is what it needs.
Hey, I love it. Full circle. Well done, buddy.
Full circle. That's what authors do.
Love it.
Yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Well, awesome, Marty. We'll go ahead and wrap her up there, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome, man. Very
prolific. Really pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
I'd love to have you back. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to have you back, just because we didn't really get to talk about the other half of being an author, is the business side of it as well. I meant to ask you questions about Amazon and
let's have you back in a month when you have 10 other books out.
Yeah. 10, 11, something like that. Yeah. But before, when you have me back, I want you to bring out like something grilled so I can get kind of get the whole.
Sure. Like, I'm starting an Instagram channel with a guy who grills. So basically, it's gonna be a lot of exotic firewood, and we're doing cuts from down here. So it's not gonna be like brisket or like ribs. Yeah. It's the meats we do down here. So we kill the cow differently, and we chop it up. We chop it up differently. So that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, all right. So Marty, Shannon, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Get it back. Yeah, you take care, man. I will hit you up on Discord sometime.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Pedro Eng. What a show.
Dude, this was an awesome show, man. What a prolific guy.
Yeah.
Like, I knew he was a writer. I knew he was a writer, but not like the writer. Damn.
Ambushed you today. We usually get artists on here, and we got a writer. Yeah, you're outnumbered.
Hey, he was nice. He had cool things to say about artists. So
there you go. You just got to butter Pedro's bread a little bit. Just how you tip him with some goodwill. No, I did want to say hello and goodbye to the chat, of course. Thank you all for hanging out with us. Derelict Books. Hey, thanks for coming by and supporting, buddy. You're welcome back in our chat anytime. And if you have a book you want to promote, drop a comment, and I'll hit you up on Twitter, sir.
Yeah, dude.
Same with Chaos SN if you're a writer as well. Chris, thank you, sir. You look stunning in your dress.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Pops's internet, or not his internet, his power went out entirely.
Yeah.
I received
Oh,
word
geez.
of, so
Mm-hmm.
that will be that. And let's see, Rosanna G. Ferraro, thanks. That was fun. Thanks for having Marty.
It was fun for us.
Okay.
It was fun for us.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm ready to have another chat with Marty back to back.
Absolutely. I just like the name Marty. I'm not gonna lie; it's so much fun to say.
Yeah,
It makes you happy to say.
Yeah, and I mean, my mind's going like da 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 da, and I hear Great Scott, but that's just me because I was born in the '80s. But
Sure, you're an old man.
yeah, I'm an old man. So
Just
guys,
poking
if
the
you
bear
please go to Fund My Comic, Back Tropical Magic. Check out all the awesome books that are in there. Our boy Luke Stone is making a home where you won't get censored or shadow banned. It will be very upfront. If you have a problem, you speak with the person. So yeah, dude, let's get this Fund My Comic portal ready and good for all like creators, man, because it's sorely needed. So yeah, check out Tropical Magic and Fund My Comic. It's an awesome book.
Okay.
The book's already done. Once the campaign is over, we're going off to the printer, and you'll get your book on your hands really soon.
Yep. And next week we have a equally as exciting guest. His name's Jeffrey Reddick. He's the creator of Final Destination.
Oh,
so that'll be fun. Yeah,
damn.
Get to talk.
Wow.
Creating the Final Destination, and I mean sort of the movie, and also what would his final destination be if you had to pick somewhere to die? I don't know. We'll find out.
I'm gonna wear a tie.
Okay, very nice. All right, so we will catch y'all next week
on
the Ginge Pedro show.
Peace. Take care, guys.